The vast chamber pulsed with golden light, a cathedral of power carved into the heart of the Galactic Empire's flagship, Eternum. Spanning half a kilometer in diameter, its ceiling shimmered with projected constellations, holographic tributes to conquered systems. At the center of the room stood the dais, obsidian black and ringed with radiant force fields, where only the honored and the condemned were permitted to stand. He stood alone there now, the human, a single man amid an empire. Commander Elias Rourke's boots echoed faintly on the polished floor as he strode forward, head high, eyes scanning the throng of alien spectators who stared at him with a mixture of amusement and contempt. His uniform, once ceremonial, now bore faded bloodstains and a dozen field repairs. No cybernetics hummed from beneath his skin. No exosuit boosted his frame. He carried only a sheathed combat knife at his side and a quiet gravity in his step. From the dais, the Galactic Emperor watched, encased in living armor that responded to his every thought. His eyes, violet ancient, gleamed beneath the metallic crown fused to his scalp. Around him, the infamous praetors stood in formation, the Empire's elite guards, 7 in all, each sculpted by centuries of genetic refinement and cybernetic augmentation. They had names, but none were used anymore. They were simply the blades, living weapons forged to be invincible. The Emperor gestured lazily. A low chime echoed, commanding attention. "This is the warrior your species sends," he asked, voice both regal and amused. "A mortal man, unenhanced, flesh-bound? Is this meant to insult us or entertain us?" Laughter rolled across the chamber like distant thunder. Alien dignitaries from 100 worlds smirked and hissed in amusement, some translating the moment in real time to their respective homeworlds. Rourke said nothing. The Emperor tilted his head. "You do not kneel, human." "I don't kneel to tyrants," Rourke replied, his voice level, "or to those who mistake ceremony for strength." That stilled the laughter for a breath. Then it erupted again, louder, sharper. One of the blades stepped forward, a towering figure with chrome skin and energy blades integrated into its forearms. It tilted its head as if studying a curious animal. "This one believes his defiance matters," it rasped, synthetic voice oozing derision. Rourke met the creature's gaze. "You believe yours does." Another blade hissed in delight. "Permission to test this creature's delusions, Your Eminence?" The Emperor reclined, nodding once. "Very well. The human wishes to prove himself through combat. Let him have his moment." A mechanical whine stirred beneath the dais. Panels slid apart, revealing an arena floor descending into place. A perfect ring of light enclosing Rourke and his soon-to-be opponent. The gathered crowd leaned forward, eyes glinting. Spectacle always trumped politics. The chosen blade entered first, stepping into the light with theatrical grace. He spun his arms once, blades unfolding like wings. "I will keep your skull intact for study," he said. "Your species may have novelty value after all." Rourke reached down, unsheathed his knife. The moment silenced the room. No plasma rifle, no hidden tech, just a foot-long blade, old and pitted. The absurdity of it was so stark, even the Emperor raised an eyebrow. But Rourke's stance wasn't that of a desperate man. It was that of a predator. The blade moved first, a blur of motion fueled by gravitic stabilizers and neural acceleration. In a heartbeat, it closed the distance, arm flashing toward Rourke's neck. The crowd held its breath, expecting blood, death, the confirmation of superiority. Instead, they saw the human pivot smoothly, knife catching a strike mid-swing. Sparks burst. The blade overextended. Rourke surged forward. One step. One slash. The blade staggered back, chest plate rent with a deep gash. It snarled and lashed again, this time faster, more precise. But Rourke was already beneath its guard, elbow-shattering synthetic ribs, knife plunging between layers of armor with terrifying efficiency. The blade screamed, sparks exploding from its joints. Another strike. A twist of metal. The creature collapsed. Dead silence followed. No one cheered. No one laughed. Blood, black and oily, pooled beneath the fallen elite. Rourke stepped back, breathing steady, blade still gleaming. He looked up, eyes scanning the chamber, meeting the gazes of those who had mocked him. The Emperor sat forward, fingers steepled beneath his chin. A fluke, one of the other blades muttered. The unit was not calibrated for unpredictable organic variants. A second trial, then, the Emperor said softly. We are generous hosts. Rourke wiped his blade clean on the fallen warrior's armor. I'll kill as many as you want, he said, his tone flat. You brought this on yourselves when you took our colony. When you killed my people. This isn't sport for me. It's justice. The Emperor regarded him with a new weight behind his eyes. The praetors, for the first time in centuries, shifted uneasily. And across the chamber, from shadows and silken balconies, the rest of the galaxy watched, not with laughter, but with dawning apprehension. The human had come not to perform, not to beg, but to fight. And worse still, to win. The Emperor smiled faintly. Let us see, he whispered, if flesh truly is stronger than steel. The chamber lights dimmed once more. The next warrior stepped forward. The arena shifted again. Panels along the perimeter retracted, revealing a coliseum bathed in cold blue light. Jagged monoliths of alien alloy rose from the floor, some smooth, others bristling with blades, all carefully designed for spectacle. Above, gravity regulators hummed as the artificial atmosphere thickened, calibrated for maximum strain on organic lungs. The audience leaned in, hungry for redemption, for a return to order. Two more blades entered the ring. The first moved with unnatural elegance, its limbs long, armor flexible, sculpted like a predator carved from obsidian. From the center of its back rose a fan of quivering spines, each pulsing with low-energy plasma. The second was squat, armored like a tank, eyes hidden behind a thick visor. Its gauntlets buzzed faintly with kinetic disruption fields, the kind that could collapse a skull with a tap. Rourke stood alone again. He flexed his fingers, eyes scanning the terrain. Sweat traced a line down his spine, but he welcomed the burn in his lungs. It meant he was still alive. The crowd no longer jeered. There was only silence, the kind that came before either reverence or ruin. The elegant blade struck first, faster than the last. A plume of plasma fanned out like wings, filling the air with searing light. Rourke dove behind a spire, heat licking at his heels. The moment he hit the ground, the heavy one charged, its footsteps like falling stone, the earth quaking beneath it. He rolled aside. The brute's fist shattered the pillar instead, spraying molten shards across the ring. Rourke didn't pause. He rose into a sprint, weaving between obstructions, forcing his enemies into each other's paths. The elegant one vaulted overhead, launching a stream of plasma from its spines. Rourke threw himself to the ground, blade first, skidding across the floor, narrowly avoiding the arc. His shoulder struck a jagged outcrop. Pain flared white-hot, but pain meant awareness. He ducked another blow from a brute, then jammed his knife between two plates of its armor, twisting hard. The creature roared, stumbled, but didn't fall. Instead, it slammed its elbow into Rourke's chest, sending him flying into a wall with a sickening crack. The crowd leaned forward. Rourke gasped, ribs screaming, vision tunneling. He wiped blood from his lip, blinked back blackness, and stood. Slowly, deliberately. You are persistent, the elegant one said, voice modulated and cold. Rourke coughed. You're repetitive. The two blades circled him, now, coordinated. Their AI link systems communicated faster than thought, strategizing, adapting. A pincer maneuver. One from the front, the other from behind. He waited. As the brute lunged, he ducked, not away, but toward. Slid beneath the massive legs, slashed the back of one knee. Sparks and fluid sprayed. As the brute stumbled, the elegant blade misjudged its leap and collided with it mid-air. Rourke pounced. He landed atop the elegant one, driving his knife downward, puncturing the armor beneath its collar. It screamed, not in fear, but in fury. Talons slashed at him. One raked across his thigh. Another sliced across his forearm. He didn't stop. He tore the blade free, plunged it in again, twice, 3 times, until the creature went limp beneath him. He turned, just in time to see the brute recovering. No time to breathe. It barreled toward him with a roar, both arms raised. Rourke waited until the last moment, then dove left, limping now, blood slick on his leg, and the creature's momentum carried it straight into one of the spire's jagged tips. The force of the impact pierced its armor, impaling it like a beetle on a pin. The brute twitched once. Then it stopped moving. Silence returned. For the second time, Rourke stood surrounded by dead gods. He staggered back to the center of the ring, face slick with sweat and blood. His breathing was ragged, his stance uneven. But he stood. The Emperor had not moved. From the throne, he watched Rourke with a gaze like molten steel. A ripple of conversation stirred among the delegates. Some hushed, some panicked. Rourke couldn't hear the words, but he saw the fear blooming behind their eyes. He saw it in the way the praetors clenched their fists now. No longer amused, no longer confident. For creatures who had never known doubt, it clung to them now like oil. One of the blades stepped forward, taller than the others. Gold-plated armor, ceremonial and scarred. Its eyes locked with Rourke's. "Enough games," it said. "We face him together." There were no objections. The Emperor did not stop them. Rourke didn't protest either. He understood what was coming. He looked around the chamber, at the faces watching him. He wasn't sure what was more dangerous, that they no longer saw him as weak, or that they were starting to see him as something worse. Something capable. Something they couldn't afford to ignore. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat, drawing in the stale, thick air. Pain pulsed through his ribs, his arms, his legs. But beneath the pain, there was something stronger. Resolve. He gripped his bloodied knife and turned to face the remaining blades. They were done laughing. So was he. They came as one. For blades descended into the arena in perfect formation, their bodies humming with stored kinetic energy and malice. There was no pretense of showmanship now, no taunts, no theatrical flourishes. The Empire's finest had abandoned arrogance. In its place, cold calculation remained. They moved without sound, eyes locked on Rourke, each step a declaration of their purpose. Eliminate the anomaly before the galaxy lost faith in their supremacy. Rourke's lungs burned, every breath laced with copper. Blood oozed from his thigh and dripped steadily from a gash above his brow. The knife in his hand was slick with gore and barely intact, its edge chipped, its tip dulled. But his grip never faltered. Across the chamber, dignitaries leaned away from a railing. The Emperor sat like a statue, silent, unmoving, his expression unreadable. The first blade struck, a blur of whirring limbs and shifting plates. Rourke ducked the blow, but the second was already there, sweeping low. He leapt over the strike, only to catch a third's fist across his ribs. Bone cracked. His vision flared white, and his body spun from the impact, crashing into a jagged wall of steel. He hit the ground hard. Before he could rise, a boot the size of his torso slammed down. He rolled away just in time, gasping, dragging himself to his feet as three blades closed in. The fourth waited behind, observing, learning. They weren't just faster. They were smarter. He needed chaos. Rourke darted behind a spire, forcing the blades to split their formation. One followed, dual blades slicing the air with mechanical precision. Rourke threw a piece of broken armor as a distraction, dove low, and slashed at the knee joint. Sparks erupted, but the blade pivoted, driving a fist into Rourke's shoulder. Pain exploded through him as he fell backward. The blade loomed, ready to finish it. But Rourke had already palmed a shard of jagged glass. As the creature lunged, he thrust the shard upward into its throat port, just below the cranial armor, where no alloy reached. The blade spasmed, fell back, and collapsed, twitching. Three remained. He didn't run. They closed in again, tighter now. One struck high, another low, the third feinting to draw him into the real blow. Rourke moved like a wounded animal, jagged, instinctive, but with purpose. He let the feint land, twisting mid-strike to drive his heel into the attacker's knee. It buckled. He pounced. A knee to the throat. A stab under the arm. Another body down. The arena spun around him now. His balance faltered. Blood coated his hands. His ears rang from repeated blows. But he smiled through cracked lips. A memory surged forward, one of the mud fields of Sharon 6, when he'd held a position for 17 hours against 27 insurgents. No backup. No hope. Just teeth. Just fire. Just the will to keep standing. The third blade roared and came at him with renewed fury. This one wielded a chain blade, its vibrating teeth designed to tear through armor in seconds. Rourke sidestepped the first sweep, ducked the second, then lunged forward, too close for the weapon to be effective. He drove his shoulder into the creature's chest, using momentum, not strength. The impact staggered it. He used its own mass to flip it into a jagged protrusion of alien steel. The blade shrieked as the spines pierced its armor, severing coolant lines and internal systems. It spasmed, then went still. Only one remained. The fourth hadn't moved. Rourke turned to face it, chest heaving. The blade regarded him with something almost like curiosity. Unlike the others, its armor was sleek, no weapons, no visible enhancements. It stepped forward in silence. Then it spoke, voice low and clear. You should not have lasted this long. Rourke wiped blood from his eyes. And yet, they circled each other. No cheers. No commentary. The chamber was breathless, the air thick with something far more dangerous than awe. Doubt. The blade moved suddenly, fluid, precise. No wasted motion. A strike to the throat, a sweep at the leg, an elbow to the temple. Rourke blocked the first, dodged the second, took the third. His world spun. He hit the floor, but rolled, dodging the follow-up kick. The blade advanced, relentless. Rourke faked right, then drove forward, low. A tackle, unrefined but effective. They crashed to the ground, struggling in close quarters. The blade's fingers sought his throat. Rourke jammed his thumb into its ocular port, crushing the lens. The machine thing shrieked, but didn't let go. Rourke drew his knife with his offhand and drove it into the side of its neck, over and over, until synthetic tendons snapped and circuits burst in showers of light. Then it too went still. He pushed himself up slowly, knees trembling, for bodies lay around him, all motionless. Rourke stood in the center of a killing field, the last breath of his strength holding him upright. Above, the chamber remained silent. Then, softly, the Emperor clapped. Once. Twice. The sound echoed like thunder. No weapon. No augmentation. No mercy, the Emperor said, his voice heavy with something new, respect or perhaps calculation. You are not what I expected. I never was, Rourke rasped. The Emperor leaned forward. Tell me what drives you. What gives you this persistence? Rourke looked up at him, blood running down his cheek. You took everything. That was your mistake. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded once, slowly. Across the chamber, the whispers returned. But this time, they were not about sport. They were about danger. About fear. The human hadn't survived. He'd conquered. And the Empire was beginning to understand what that meant. The doors at the far end of the arena hissed open. Rourke didn't flinch. He couldn't. His body barely obeyed him now. Each nerve screamed. Each heartbeat was a detonation of pain. But he stood, barely, shoulders squared, blade still gripped in fingers clenched tight from blood and exhaustion. Through the threshold strode the final figure. Not a blade, not a weapon. The Emperor himself. He descended the dais without fanfare, without escort. His armor, living and fluid, retracted partially as he walked, revealing a face as ancient as the stars he ruled, a face unscarred, untouched by time. His eyes glowed faintly with the same color as the Empire's banners, deep violet, cold, and absolute. And behind him trailed silence, like gravity obeyed his will alone. Rourke straightened with what strength remained. So that's it, he said hoarsely. You couldn't kill me from your throne, so you came down to do it yourself. The Emperor's voice was almost gentle. No, I came down to understand. He stopped a few paces away, hands at his sides. No weapons. No aggression. Do you know why I built the blades? He asked. Rourke gave no answer. I built them because the galaxy fears efficiency more than cruelty. They were never meant to be soldiers. They were symbols. Precision. Invincibility. A myth with metal skin. He gestured to the corpses littering the arena floor. And you broke it. One man. One knife. Rourke's lip curled. And you're here to fix the myth? The Emperor gave a faint, tired smile. I'm here because the myth is already gone. They stood in silence. The audience above was frozen, some holding their breath, others recording every second, already transmitting it to the furthest reaches of their sectors. The Empire's truth was unraveling, and no amount of ceremony could stitch it back together. You think you've won, the Emperor said finally. But what you've done is much more dangerous. You've made people believe something I spent centuries suppressing. That resistance isn't futile. That defiance can work. That one man can stand against a machine designed to outlast suns. Rourke stared, jaw clenched. That's not dangerous. That's hope. It's the same thing, the Emperor replied. And for a moment, there was a weariness in his voice that belied his immortal frame. Hope is the fire that burns down empires. A long pause followed. Then the Emperor stepped closer, his gaze sharp. You've already ignited something. I can feel it rippling through the void. Uprisings will come now. Cells in the outer systems. Riots in the core. Delegates will reconsider their loyalties. Systems will hesitate. Good, Rourke said. Let them. But they won't succeed, the Emperor added. They'll die in your name. I didn't ask for followers. Yet you'll have them. That's the price of becoming a symbol. For the first time, Rourke's expression faltered. Not from fear, but from realization. He hadn't fought for glory or martyrdom. He had fought for vengeance, for justice, for the memory of a home erased from the stars without trial or warning. But now he was becoming something else. An idea. The Emperor watched that recognition settle in. Return with me to the dais, he said. Speak to them. Tell them this was diplomacy. That Earth and the Empire reached understanding. That the fighting ends here. No. The Emperor nodded, unsurprised. Then kill me. The words hung in the air like a blade suspended mid-fall. Rourke stared at him. One strike. One step. That's all it would take. The Emperor stood unarmed, unshielded, inviting execution. But in that moment, Rourke understood the truth. If he struck, the myth would live on in a new form. The human assassin, violent and uncontrollable. An animal who brought only destruction. The Empire would spin the tale, gild it with propaganda, and bury the truth under 1,000 broadcasts. But if he let him live? That was a wound the Emperor couldn't close. Rourke sheathed his blade. The chamber gasped as one. The Emperor blinked slowly. You choose mercy? I choose to leave you broken, Rourke said. Let them see what you really are. A man who couldn't stop me, who came down from his throne and still failed. Rourke turned, limping toward the exit, his silhouette haloed in the artificial starlight. He passed the shattered blades, the ruptured spires, the pools of blackened oil and blood, without a glance back. Behind him, the Emperor remained motionless. Above, the chamber erupted, not with cheers, not with ceremony, but with chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Messages were dispatched. Fleets were ordered to stand by. Somewhere, in a distant system, a prisoner surely smiled. A rebel dared to speak. A child asked their mother if humans were real. And in every corner of the galaxy, the impossible had happened. The myth had cracked. The man had stood. And the Empire had learned fear.